Do you need a hand clap?
Well,
what? To sync everything. Well, it's to sync everything, so the video and the sound is all kind of tied up.
Is it?
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Thanks, Ash.
It's
Cheers
not
for
even put it
that.
off camera. It needs to be on the camera so they can sync the video and the... Oh, Jesus.
Action.
Yeah, we'll leave that in, I think. Yeah.
You can start like that.
So, yeah, so we got here eventually anyway.
Exactly, Pete, finally. There's a couple of roads closed, but we made it in the end.
Absolutely,
Let's see how this works.
So what are we here for?
A couple of Clearview podcasts talking about what we do and who we are realistically. So the first one is, who we are and what we do. So you're the head of technical sales at Clearview Intelligence. Do you want to tell us a bit about what Clearview does and yourself?
Okay, so it feels a bit strange telling you, but I think you probably know most of this, but I'm Pete Cattell.
No way.
Surprisingly enough, I've been around for a while. I've been in this industry for, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
This is my second time at Clearview. I was with them some years ago and I've been back now for about 8 years. As you said, I'm head of technical sales. And it's a strange role, actually, because it was originally sold to me as being a backroom job, actually working almost behind the scenes, working with the sales guys. And you can see, here I am behind the scenes. And I often stand on stages waving my arms around and stuff and telling people about what Clearview do. It's one of those difficult. I always find it's one of the most difficult questions. Is so what do Clearview do? Because we do such a massive range of things.
Exactly.
I think when you look at our history, we've been around for last year was our 50th year, and we started off making traffic counters basically. Even that's an interesting story. So 50 years ago, they developed the world's first microprocessor controlled traffic counter. And interesting story, the first product they released was called the Mark II. And the reason it was called Mark II is because they thought nobody would buy a Mark I of any product. So actually it was the first product, but they called it Mark II, which I thought was really quite clever. But it was really radical. I mean, it was totally different to any traffic counter that anybody had ever seen before. Up until that point, they had like cassette tapes in them and bits of paper tape and all sorts of stuff. This had a microprocessor in it. This was doing really some quite clever stuff. And basically the rest of the world copied us. So we were the first doing that, and every traffic counter since then has looked very much like that first product that we did. So our background has been very much around detecting things, detecting cars or vans or cyclists or, whatever needed to be detected on the highway. And that really spurred the two big parts of what our business is. One is around data services. So, we're collecting this information from these boxes at the side of the road. But it needs to be stored somewhere, and you need to be able to analyse it. You need to be able to understand trends in that data and so on. So we have a product that we call Insight. So all of the devices that we have collecting data out in the world, as it were, tend to send their data back to Insight. And Insight stores it and allows you to then run whatever reports you want to run on it. So it might be you want to look at, what's the difference between peak time and off-peak time? What's the mix of vehicles? Because that's been quite interesting recently. The mix of vehicles on urban roads is changing. If you look from like 10, 15 years ago, you'd rarely see a white van. Now, actually, there's thousands and thousands of white vans driving around. What's the impact on them on an urban environment? Are they damaging the roads? All of those things, these are the things that local authorities worry about. So that's really the background of the data services side. But then we talk about detecting things, and the other thing that we do is we make effectively route safety schemes. So there might be a particular junction or a particular interchange or something that is a hazard for some reason. If we can use detection to detect, is it an HGV waiting to turn? Is a car approaching this junction too quickly? Is there somebody sitting waiting in the middle of the road? All of those things, we can use our detection technology to work out if there's somebody there. And if there's a hazardous situation, then we can illuminate signs, or we can do whatever we can do to try and kind of mitigate the risks at that junction. So that's kind of the two big parts of our business, is the data services and this route safety schemes, really. But it all comes from our ability to detect what's happening on the road. And I guess it's probably worth mentioning that, the detection methods have changed over the years. That first detection thing, that first loop-based counter, Loops are still around. When I was here first time 15 years ago, everybody was saying loops are dead. Nobody's going to be doing loops anymore. We're still doing loops.
Still going.
Yeah. and loops are still probably the most accurate method. You can get an awful lot of information out of a loop in the ground. The problem is it's what people tend to refer to it as being invasive. You're actually damaging the road putting that loop in. So there's been a gradual move to kind of non-invasive technology. So we've got solutions that use LiDAR, for instance, to detect cyclists and pedestrians. We've got vision cameras, so these use artificial intelligence to look at objects, because you can't call them vehicles anymore because we now detect pedestrians. So we're now looking at objects on the road. We're detecting where they're going and all of that sort of stuff. So the detection technology has changed, but the route use of all of that information for planning and traffic management and so on is the same. And it also all builds into that potential for a route safety scheme. So that was a long answer to a very short question.
It was most certainly. Thank you very much, Pete. That's a great insight into what Clearview does and what we do. In aspects of what Clearview does, who actually uses our products and how are they used?
We have a huge range of customers, from parish councils, for instance, where they've potentially got a safety scheme, or they want to know the speed through their village or whatever, right the way up to the kind of tier one contractors of this world, the big civil engineering companies that you see, and also national highways. So we've got thousands of counters out on the UK road network that feed data back to national highways. I guess it may be important to mention that we don't tend to get involved in any enforcement. So we might be detecting the number of vehicles, we might be detecting the speed those vehicles are travelling, but it's never used in any enforcement situation. It's used for analytics, for people to understand what's happening on the highway. A range of customers that go, and it's not just local authorities. So we've got from parish councils up to national highways, but also universities, shopping centres. Lots of private companies as well use this detection. Anywhere really where there's lots of people or vehicles moving around, there is a potential for us to add value to that.
Perfect. Very much for your answer.